Hello, this is Michael McCarthy, and in this video we're going to take a look at daylight lighting versus nighttime lighting. You can see that we have this alleyway scene here, and the only thing that has been created is this direct light here, which is representing the sun. So quick and simple direct light, and it has a pretty high multiplier and kind of a warmer yellow color. So when we render this out here, we'll see what that looks like. So you can see we have some nice warm sun coming in here and some nice shadows that are pretty crisp, but we definitely need some bounce light. So to do that, what I'm going to do is create a couple Omni lights. So let's go over to Create, Omni. And in the top view, we're just going to put a few Omni lights in each one of these sections here. So you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 to go. We'll take this Omni light and let's just name this Bounce 01. And let's copy that. Make sure that we're copying it as an instance, and we're going to copy it 4 times. And there we are there. And actually, I think this one at the end we don't necessarily need, so we'll just have the 3 of them, or 4 total, there. Now, for this, we want to lower the multiplier a lot, so let's bring that down to about, I don't know, maybe 0.2, and let's just do a quick render here. So this should be looking a lot better. We have some nice bounce lights, they're diffusing the shadows in places, and that works out pretty well. We did forget to lift them up off the ground here, and that's something that we're going to want to do. And also you can see that we're really getting blown out here towards the end, and that's because these lights don't have any attenuation. So let's select them all and lift them up. So probably just under this first set of bridges here. And let's turn on attenuation. We want a pretty large attenuation, so let's set the start to something like 800 and the end to something like 8000. And you can see that is pretty big. Maybe we'll reel it in a bit, but let's take a quick render here. And now that light should be falling off towards the top and bottom, and it should be diffusing over here too as well. So you can see in the back it looks a lot better. Now the next thing that we're going to want is just some kind of basic ambient type light, and we'll use some Omni lights for that as well. So let's just create a new set of Omni lights, and we're going to just place those, let's get maybe 3 of them. And this one we're going to call Fill 01. And these fill lights we won't have any attenuation on, and we'll probably want to make these bounce lights to be, I guess we'll keep them yellow for now, and that will be fine. And then we want them to have a pretty low value, so I guess 0.2 is fine. And let's create about 3 of them. So just position that one there and create 2 more. And with those selected, we'll just move them up slightly, and we can move them maybe a little bit over that second set of bridges, and this will just give us a little additional light in the scene. So we can render that out, and you can see that additional light kind of coming in and really filling up the area. Probably a multiplier of 0.2 isn't needed, so we'll go with 0.1. And these walls are kind of a brick or stone, so on the first set of bounce lights, what I'd like to do is just change the color to something that's a little bit more blue, and that should bring out the richness in the stone and give us some good looks there. So that's good. We tamed down that overall ambient light, and we have some good shadows and shading all the way through. So this is a good base setup for our daylight system. And now we want to take it into the nighttime setup. For our nighttime setup, we're going to first want to change the major light component in the scene. So let's go and grab that key light. Instead of the moon, or instead of the sun, this is now going to be the moon. So let's bring that multiplier down quite a bit, and let's change the color to a blue tone. And these bounce lights here we're not going to need right now, because before we had them because the sun was coming in and it was very strong and it needed to bounce around the alley, but we don't really need those now, so let's turn them off for now, and maybe we'll do something with them a little bit later and do a quick render. So you can see this is a good deal darker, but not quite dark enough, and that's probably because of the second set of Omni-lights that are in here. And let's just change their color to something that is a little bit darker and blue. And we can probably move those down a little bit too. So I'm going to go ahead and select each one of those and just move it down under this kind of first set of bridges here, and we'll render that out. So now you can see we have this real nice blue tone going on. The sky is a little bit strange, so let's go into the material and let's press 8 to bring up the environment and just drag that sky texture in here so that we can edit it. In the bitmap section we can scroll down to output and just kind of bring that output amount down to something like 1.9 or 0.8 to make it pretty dark. And then when we render this out again, that sky will be nice and dark there, and that'll give us the feel for the nighttime scene. Now before, our major light source was the sun, and now it's still pretty much our major light source, but a very strong secondary light source is going to be these lamps here. So what we want to do is these lights that we turned off before, we want to take them and kind of situate them near those lights. So I'm going to do that with this one here. Just kind of position it over near this light. I want it to be fairly close to the light, but not really inside, because we are going to have it cast shadows, and we want it to cast shadows on this back wall. So we also want to bring it down in the front view here so that it's right about there. And then we're going to take this and instance it throughout the scene. So we'll probably just remove these other ones that we had, all of these ones that are the bounced lights from before. We're going to remove those, and then we'll copy this across. So we have a few of these lights here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 more that we need to copy. So let's copy this light out here 4 times. And then let's select all these guys. We're making sure that we're using instance, and copy them over to the other side here, so right there. And in the front view, let's just make sure that on this side we're looking pretty good as far as the positioning near the lamp. So we're going to turn these lights on now, and they're definitely going to be a lot brighter. So we want them to be yellow, and we want them to be pretty bright. I'll say maybe at least 1.5. And we do want them to cast shadows, but instead of ray trace shadows, let's cast a shadow map. And go into the shadow map parameters and just check out what we have here. So mine's set to 250 with a sample range of 12, which is really going to kind of give you a slightly blurry shadow, and because they're Omni lights, they cast 8 different shadows, so it's a good idea to have this size be pretty small so you don't eat up a lot of RAM. Okay, so let's render this out quickly. And we should be able to see these lights with their shadows on the wall and lighting up our alleyway. Now, even though we have shadows and way up here, because of that we're not getting a lot of light, it's probably a good idea to adjust the fall off. We have some fall off on here, but we probably want to bring this down quite a bit. And I'll suggest that we use, well, first we'll start to bring it down here. So maybe something like 300 by 3000. And let's take another quick render. Should render a bit faster. And that's really what we want. We really want to localize this light to just these areas, and we can probably make this a bit brighter, so probably go with like 2.5, and I might even make the color a bit richer. And render that out again. So now we're getting a really nice representation of this street lamp here. For an even better fall off, what you can do is set your decay to something like inverse square, and we can turn off this fall off and ask it to show this one, and we'll set this up to something like 600, and you can kind of see that there. Inverse square is the actual way that light will fall off, and past this circle it will start to degrade in that way. Now when you do set this up, a lot of times you will need a very, very bright light in order to do that effectively, but we already have that, so we should be okay here. This may take a bit longer to render because the light will be coming all the way up to the top of the building, and you'll get a more realistic result. You can see here this has introduced some blue, and that's because I have the shadows set to be slightly blue for whatever the last light I made. This is a good thing to remember, at least in 3ds Max, that when you do set up these lights, they'll use the same parameters as you set for like the last color. So you can see that this is set to blue, which is something I probably don't want, or not as much for this setup here. So we'll just crank up the light a little bit. Maybe up the color some. And bring this start decay to 800 and render that out. So now we have something like this, which is looking pretty good for a night scene. Whether you like the inverse decay or you like the just using near and far attenuation is up to you. Certainly you'll get a little bit better speed out of the near and far attenuation. One last thing that I like to add is some sort of little glow here to this element. So let's go into the material, and this is the material for the light. In this case, for the daytime, it was fine for them to be transparent, but I probably want the opacity to be all the way up and the self-illumination to be all the way up in this case. And I'm going to set a material ID of 5 for this so that I can apply a glow to it. Now when I go into the environment and effects dialog, I can go into effects and add a lens effects. In lens effects, I'm going to take this glow and push it over to the right, and then I'm going to scroll down to the glow element options and click on the options tab. Here I can set what I want to glow, and in my case I want it to glow that material ID that I set, so I'll set it to 5. Now I can do a quick render again, and I can turn on interactive update so I can see the glow without having to render many times. So this will render through this once, and then it will apply the glow to our lights. After that, we'll be able to adjust them very quickly. So you can see that glow come in, hopefully. And I'm going to actually make this a little bit more distinct. So with interactive update on, I can go into the glow size, and I can adjust that. So I'm going to bring that down quite a bit. Set this to maybe 3, and you can see that little halo that we have around our lights. And we can even make one that's kind of large and small. So here I'll make this the smaller version, and maybe I'll even make it 1, and I can adjust that intensity there. Then I'll add another glow, and I'll go into options for this glow, which I'll call large, and I'll set the material ID to 5. And you can see that large glow come in, and I'll go into the parameters, and even though it's large, maybe I don't need it quite that large, so maybe something like this. And if I want, I can adjust the color, so maybe that outside glow I want it to be more blue or anything like that. I'll maybe go with a interesting purple there or something. Bring that down so it's not quite as intense. And I can adjust the intensities of both of these. These are both pretty bright, so I'll bring that intensity down maybe to 90 there, and I'll go and select the small glow as well, and I'll bring the intensity of that small glow down to maybe 80, and then I have something set up like that. So hopefully this gives you a good idea of how to set up a daylight scene versus a nighttime scene, and how to add some nice details to your nighttime scene to kind of make them pop. Thank you very much.